Five, four, three, two, one. We don't know if there's sound. Should we get out of the shot though? Oh, yes. That's it. I played off like that was intentional. Well, hey, we're back. It's Exhibit B number 2. And I gotta say, Jim, your apartment looks a little different than the last time. And in the end, it is not just Exhibit B. This is the Guild Complex presents. You're right. Exhibit B. Who are these Guild Complex folks? Could you tell me a few things about them? Look at that. We're prepared. The Guild Complex. Since 1989, the Guild Literary Complex has served the Chicago community through innovative programming like this that highlights the intersections of marginality, the power of community, and the impact of arts and activism. They build on Chicago's rich literary traditions through vibrant storytelling and racial inclusion, advancing access to and from the margins. The Guild Literary Complex supports and encourages voices of all backgrounds and experiences to tell their truths. Whether they're literary powerhouses or talented newcomers, they view the literature as a vehicle of connectivity and aims to merge seemingly disparate groups across Chicago's 50 wards. 50 wards, that's a lot. Yeah, and you should notice that the link has been dropped in the chat. Yeah, for the Guild's website, check it out. They have a lot of awesome stuff they offer, obviously, this being only one of them. As we mentioned earlier, too, we are in a different place than we were last time. You want to tell people where we are this time? You may have seen some of the shots in the first video, but we are at the Chicago Mosaic School up on the north side near Jim, where me and Jim stomped. The Granville Red Line stage. Yeah, it doesn't get enough credit. But yeah, anyway, founded in 2005, the Chicago Mosaic School has become the center of education for mosaic arts in the United States and in the larger world. As the first nonprofit school of its kind, CMS provides opportunities for students and artists interested in comprehensive study with an academic, materially oriented approach to art education in the world master's tradition. Now it's been 15 years that they've been around. The school gives artists, teachers, and enthusiasts a place to explore all facets of mosaics, from classical reproduction. And we'll be showing contemporary abstraction. Contemporary abstraction. Yeah. Sorry, I cut him off. I'm stomping all over him today. This is how fights start and bands break up. But we're going to be showing you a few demos, talented artists that are going to be working. Yeah, some incredible stuff on offer from the Mosaic School. Check them out. They are doing a ton of stuff. Still, even in this COVID world, online, in person. Yeah, it's pretty metal. So, we forgot to introduce ourselves. Oh yeah, I mean, you're more than just Ian to me. I'm Ian Wuchkevich. I am one of the obviously hosts and editors of this show. James, my platonic life partner. James Stewart the third. You gotta say the whole time, the whole thing every time. His full title. Yeah. So yeah, we're here again. Hopefully, I think we will get to some plans for later shows later in this specific show. But first, we did our land acknowledgement the first time last time. We're going to do that again here before we get the ball rolling. Jen? Yes, while we're broadcasting from Chicago, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we're on stolen land, a result of acts of genocide perpetrated by white settlers and the United States of America against this land's indigenous inhabitants. I recognize the complexity of myself, a Black non-native person doing so, but I do so with an open heart as an act of solidarity between the nation's most oppressed peoples. This land was, is, and forever will be that of the Potawatomi, Kickapoo, Peoria, Miami, and the Sioux. I use past, present, and future tenses because the native people are still here, surviving and thriving. Indigenous people are leading voices in the struggle against white supremacy, for environmental justice, and against police brutality. To find out more about how you could construct your own land acknowledgement statement, or find out what tribes have lived on the land that you're on right now in this country, you could go to the links that Mary is dropping right now in the chat. Yes, Mary is running the chat this time on the tubes, another member of the Bums who is involved in the making of this show. It's been a little while since the last one. Surprisingly little has changed in my day-to-day life. I look out the same window all the time. But that's why this is so valuable. That's right. To get out of the house and be with you and see some awesome art. Since the last show, I've only got more scared. Yes. It is slightly terrifying, but also, you gotta take the wins where you can get them. Look at this. Ian being an optimist. No, I'm so optimistic. As we're 13 days away from the election. Oh God. Oh, geez. I haven't heard about that. It hasn't made it to you yet? No, I fully cut off from the news. Oh, I'm sorry for dropping that. Yeah. Bit of news. I'll have to do some research after this, but yeah, I guess let's get to it a little bit. All right, sure. Do some art. First, we're going to have a live performance. There's going to be a couple live performances tonight. There's going to be a couple videos. They're all going to be awesome. First up, we have Naomi Washer. She is the editor-in-chief of Ghost Proposal and the author of Train Songs, American Girl Doll, and Phantoms. She is also the translator of Sebastian Jimenez Galindo's Experimental Gardening Manual. Her work has appeared in the Seneca Review, in Essay Daily, in Asymptote, in Entropy Magazine, just to name a few. She has received fellowships and residencies from Yaddo, Vermont Studio Center, Studio Fair, and the Chateau of Vaux in France, and Columbia College Chicago, where she earned her MFA in nonfiction, also metal. Her debut novel, Subjects We Left Out, will be coming to us in March of 2021. Keep an eye out for that. Mary will be tossing some links in there as well for you to follow and get some copies of Naomi's book. And here you go. Thanks, Naomi.
Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who's tuning in tonight, and to all of the Exhibit B crew and the Guild and the Chicago Mosaic School for hosting us, and also to my fellow readers and performers tonight. It means a lot to share space with you guys. Let's see, the screen is frozen. Hopefully it's still recording. Okay. So my first novel is coming out in March with Valise Books, and it's called Subjects We Left Out. And they have actually just revealed the cover and some more info about the book, so you can check that out. Oh, good. You can check that out on their website. The book is about a young American writer who is translating a book of poems from French to English. And I'm going to read a few short excerpts from that and then transition into an audio recording of some material from my forthcoming chapbook. So, the night I finally spoke to Alex in the square, we ended up back at my apartment around the corner where I lit a couple of lamps so we could see, but not too brightly. Why does this look exactly like the place where you would live? He laughed. Because it is, I said. Because I do. I boiled water for 2 cups of green tea while he browsed the bookshelves. He pulled one out by a contemporary American author with whom he was not familiar and asked me to tell him about it. The book was about reading, interruptions, travel, a never-ending search. I began describing it, but decided he should experience it for himself. You can't borrow my copy, I said. My notes are too personal. He laughed. I don't know you well enough yet, I said. Get your own. Several hours later, unable to sleep in the middle of the night, I drafted an email I never sent him about the dangers of reading. In it, I composed the most serious literary threat I knew how to raise. As a reader, was he brave enough to meet continual deferrals of the plot head on? When I arrived in Paris because I was in Europe, I thought I must be closer to Alex than I had been for quite some time. A nonstop flight from Paris to Florence cost less than €100 and would take less than 2 hours. But a train from Paris to Florence would be 8 or 9 hours, the same amount of time it had taken me to fly to Paris from the US. Google Maps told me I could catch a train from Gare de Lyon and cross the border into Italy in only 5 hours and 43 minutes, only 6 stops on the train. At Torino Porto Suso, I would change to an Italian train, present my passport, and in 2 hours and 50 minutes, only 5 stops on that train, I would arrive at Firenze Santa Maria Novella station. From there, I could exit the station, cross the river Arno that divides the city into two, and arrive in the metropolitan city of Florence. I imagined Alex meeting me there, beside the river Arno. I imagined us walking and talking together the way we had before. I imagined that nothing would have changed between us, that he would be happy to see me and to show me his city the way that I had shown him mine. I imagined the bells of Santa Maria Novella tolling the evening hour I arrived, as if heralding some important message or occasion. I even imagined arriving in Florence without telling Alex I was on my way, like in my dream. I imagined we would run into each other by the river or rounding the corner of some curved cobblestone street. I saw the scene as if from the outside, from above, as if it were a movie. The soundtrack would be Sufjan Stevens, obviously. I looked up Airbnbs that would match the aesthetic of the film I was composing in my head and found a magical one-guest retreat, an inspiring artist studio, where I could wake up to the surreal view of the entire Duomo and cathedral. The Airbnb was in a building from the 1600s on Piazza Duomo, the true heart of the historical center. Leonardo da Vinci lived only 2 houses down, with large double-paned windows overlooking the populated piazza below. The host promised that if I kept the windows open, I would hear church bells, violinists, and accordions in the crowd that would linger past midnight. The listing included many images of solitary women posing in the windows with their long hair tumbling down their backs, their faces tilted upwards toward the view. Maybe Alex and I would meet in the morning on the Ponte Vecchio or the Ponte alle Grazie, and then what would we do? That was where my imagination always stopped, unable to conjure a believable story. On the train from Paris to the residency a few hours away, I reread a favorite novel by an author I admire. The novel was a long internal monologue about a woman struggling to write a novel about a failed love affair. I liked the way this author moved between telling the story and reflecting on telling the story. Parts she left out and why, parts she liked and didn't like to remember, all the different ways she tried to write and arrange material into a novel. The copy of this novel that I own was owned by someone else before me. There are several passages highlighted in the book, first in a bright yellow and later in a faint turquoise green. I like thinking about this woman who highlighted passages in this book when it belonged to her. I felt confident it was a woman who had owned it, though there was no way for me to confirm this suspicion. I like to think about how this woman must have encountered the book when she needed it, and what she must have been going through at the time, or how she may have been reflecting on something she went through at some earlier time. There was a pattern to the passages she had highlighted, first in yellow, and then a faded turquoise green, which were sometimes, but not always, the same passages I wanted to mark during my reading. But I never highlight, only underline in black pen or draw black squares and rectangles and brackets and sometimes small stars, so that some of the highlighted passages have been left exactly as she marked them, while others have been marked over a second time by me. Do you think, Alex had asked me once, we pick up certain things to read in times when there would be absolutely no other thing for us to read in that moment? I looked up at the woman in the seat across from me on the train. She was reading a novel in French and casting discerning glances at me. For what reason, I do not know. I rarely understand how others see me. I looked out the window. It had been a pleasant ride. While looking out the window, I remembered it had been Alex who recommended the novel to me, many years before I finally found this copy at a used bookstore in downtown Chicago, which I hadn't even known existed until that day. But as soon as that thought solidified in my mind, I remembered that I had in fact read the novel by this author I admire years before I bought it at the bookstore. That I had bought it because I was thinking about Alex again, and the book reminded me of him. This meant the current reading was my 5th or 6th time with this novel. And when I remembered this, I also remembered that it was not this novel Alex had recommended to me at all, but another one entirely. This changed the narrative I've been crafting in my mind, whether for a long time or only briefly, that Alex had recommended I read a novel about a woman like me who seemed more committed to writing novels about love than she was to loving. Because Alex had not actually recommended this novel to me, the idea of his doing so became another layer of my invention of him as someone who knew me so completely I believed he would never let me go. On pages 16 and 17 of the novel by the writer I admire, the previous owner had highlighted the following phrases in yellow in this order. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know. I don't like remembering. Thanks. So I also have a chapbook coming out soon with Gray and Ghost Press called Train Songs. And it's a collection of short lyric essays where every title is the name of a train line and the name of a song. So I'm going to share an audio recording, and I want to thank Josh Bonzak for helping me create this recording. I'm going to share my screen. And this one. Okay, here we go.
This is doors closing.
Lost in the fog, with only a little paper lantern, I didn't panic and I found my way, step by step, tinkling my little bell, ship on the river, lost at the mouth of the river of history. What a relief to come into the light, even a shadowy half-light. What a relief to come where it's clear. Bolaño, the Savage Detectives. Back home in Chicago, and I know I will not see you on the Brown Line train toward Kimball, so I write to you inside my head instead. I tell you about last year's summer of Bolaño, how I've been revisiting Bolaño lately, how most traditional novels don't sway me anymore the way essays do. But if you haven't read The Savage Detectives, I highly recommend it. It's a novel about the feeling of becoming lost, about a long and winding journey towards something that may never be found, for a metaphor, really. In the book, this question is posed: what's outside the window? I have a tattoo of a window. Did you know? I have the actual window too, hanging on the wall in my writing room. Two of the glass panes are broken and jagged. It's like looking through the window and existing on the other side of it at the same time. I think that's what I'm always striving for, to be both present and apart. My students often mistype the word apart. I can tell from the structure of their sentence that they meant to say they want to be a part of something, to be seen and to belong. Instead, they accidentally type apart, to be unseen, away from. They're too young to understand the sadness at the heart of that distinction, that some of us live inside that jagged intersection, fighting the tension between performance and our pull toward the glow. I've been fighting the weather here lately. Spring is arriving so slowly. More leaves appear on the trees each morning, but it's still quite cold. I'm ready for summer, when I'll walk down the tree-lined streets of my neighborhood at night, when the air is so warm that it clings to your skin, but then a light breeze sweeps in, a cool, pleasant breeze. Each night on these walks, I begin to move more slowly when I draw near to the glow of a particular window where a paper lantern illuminates the plants inside a small alcove. I've experienced the pull toward the glow of this window for years. The first time I saw it, I knew I was recognizing it rather than seeing it for the first time. So you don't have to be afraid of me seeing you, because I already do. I mean, I recognize you. I always have. In French, recognize is reconnaître, to know, to acknowledge, to say, to find, to recover, to meet, to trace, to retrieve. I think that's what it means to correspond. I've walked away from books, people, places, and things because I could not see them, even if they were right there in front of me. Someday I'll tell you about California and how I could not see it. Sometimes it's easier, at first, to face the ones who turn away than to linger in the glow. But when we take the time to linger, we start to see the constellations we could never really see. A map begins to unfold, a map to uncover. The windows of my apartment look out on the gap between two brick buildings across the street. Every 10 minutes or so, the Kimball train goes by. I hear it before it arrives, and then, for a brief moment, I see it in the gap between the buildings. At night, the windows of the train are bright white, illuminated. First, the train goes by in one direction, then the other. Sometimes, they pass each other at the same time. Then, the street grows quiet again.
Montrose is next. Doors open on the right at Montrose.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. That piece reminds me that I need to do much more traveling internationally, outside of just a shady night in Canada and then here, night in Mexico. But here we are. We have two performers coming up for you. They're going to go back to back. We're going to start with a piece from Sejake. Oh no, sorry. Second, Sejake Matsela is going to be performing. But first off, we have uuskhy and SIFI, digital band. And here's their description of what you're about to see. You often hear about the coldness of software, the icy sterility of digital artifacts. Despite the ones and zeros, the jagged edge-lated, edges of the pixelated render. There's a digital campfire crackling within the code and beckoning you to endless warmth. Here you will find teams improvising with controllers, interfaces, and antique video hardware, existing equally as human and avatar, listening, reacting, and generating sparks of digital warmth. This is uuskhy and SIFI.
In the early 2000s, I made a mixtape for Beatrice called Shadow Play. It wasn't clear at the time how well it would age, but fast forward to nearly 15 years, and Beatrice still plays it in her pickup truck, slowly cruising down wide boulevards with Killer Whale, Husky Mutt, 2 different colored eyes, in the passenger seat. Atmosphere bleeds out the speakers. It's great some people still rock tape decks in their vehicles. White cheddar on rye, grilled, that's what I ate tonight. A life recorded is a life with resonance. A document is meaningful because it is a document. Andre worries about certain rappers. He really listens to their lyrics and thinks about their mental health. So now I'm wondering how Kendrick Lamar is doing. I don't think I would have worried about him before Andre beautifully infected me with his perspective. It is a wonderful thing to be infected, sometimes. I so appreciate a coffee shop that plays excellent new wave in early December. Chicago is a great place to go deep into minimal industrial, post-rock, anything stark or moody like that. On Thursday, Chelsea and I saw Drab Majesty at the Empty Bottle. So many cuties in all black swaying. When wingtips opened, I felt my head fill, a rush of lush forests bursting open a packet of serotonin, as if someone just poured sugar all over my brain and honey into my eyes. Between bands, someone badmouthed the remake of Suspiria. I loved it, and highly recommend it. It's oddly a Jewish story now. If you don't know what I mean, go watch it. But first watch the Italian original from the 1970s. The Saturday following that, I caught the cellist from 8th Blackbird at Constellation and felt a gratitude for the art in Chicago. That totally overwhelmed me. Experimental cello. After Shadow Play, I made Beatrice a mixtape called December's Deep Wish, which she described as an amazing combination of hope and brutality. Sadly, that tape totally died one day in her deck, the thin brown tape spilling from its case, entrails as deep in the gut, its contents unplayable and imprinted only on the mind. I told her I could make her another December's Deep Wish because, although I don't remember the specific track list, I recall the spirit of the tape. And it is December now. Thunder had out an album in 2017 called Termination Dust. It is beautiful, minimal, industrial, retracting, slight, Oblivion Mode, frontier, death song. when it is 17 degrees past Chicago, and I'm either on my way to work or going home. The spongy nature of my imagination, buildings make a world, a future place. I learn to accept what the fuck is just a material thing in front of my face. What a struggle it has been all these years to be in this body and to accept the body. Body not just as my body, but body as car, body as building, body as face, anything tangible. When I see the glass windows of buildings on my way home, I see prophecy, oracle, my own projections playing out an entire narrative onto the scene. To stop the thoughts feels like death, so why bother? The mind police haven't caught me yet. Frontier Death Song is definitely going on to Beatrice's mixtape, Shadow Play 2. The aim is to get it to her by January so she can have 3 solid months of cold concrete, animal industrial. Long black coat, leaves in her eyes. 2 notes repeating. Frozen river, shadow play. Enveloped by even blacker water. Cold, cold night. Cold, cold night. What is right? When led by the night. Shallows of the crack. And a strange ecology. Your children and mine in a dying world. I'm sorry for the generations to come. Sorry for how cliche it is to feel this way. Who can rise against the tide of the collective and stop the inevitable current from rushing? And who is to say what is the right way to flow? Is that a cop-out, a way to escape the plastic encasing the world, the over-the-top lamination of everything? Frontier, death song. In winter, the long, endless way of walking when in the Midwest. Of the body on the windshield wipers and the missing mirror. I can only guess how the mirror went missing. The boot strength of raw energy tore it clean off, or more likely a sideswipe. I am in Michigan, and the government shutdown enters its 4th week. The echo of the nation, echo of the cities, echoes of the town, an ambiance, a stirring. To be brand new, a visitor, not belong here in the brewery in Kalamazoo, and Andre sips his brew. We like these things, these beers, and whiskey too. Back on the road, the highway dusted by a fresh coat of snow. I thought about shadow play and couldn't believe the timelessness and mastery of the perfect compilation. The weight of the invisible audience heavy on my shoulder blades. There's a gap, one that everyone agrees on, between last year, which was yesterday, and today. All I can do is surf the electric tides of a million moods, and the collective body sleeping in.
I am reading from this small town called Monticello, which is where I live and work. Much of this writing that I'm doing here is pretty much based on my living in rural America, having come from Southern Africa, where I hail from the small country of Lesotho. One wintry afternoon, while on a leisurely meander, traversing on sparse land, a grind of pebbles beneath your feet, feeling the soggy mud sink, when spring ate its first grasses, which were primeval beside its black soils, you chose your step carefully, prancing sideways like a winterfall. Mapping a route, you scribbled on paper, circling dots at destinations where you would stop for breath, you said. Stalk a pub and unwind. You looked around and nothing was apparent. It was as clear as the sky told you. As always, a thickness of air lurked, tangible, solid, a smear of cloud hung from above, doting upon the silent ground. Then suddenly, with a startling gust of wind, a mimation of starlings coaxed you. To begin your journey, follow on their lead, trace the sun, its yoke, head west to watch to where the rays would perish. And just as you began to ponder on the length of road, which as it lay ahead of you, the heaving bulge of the earth, the hush of the trees, you inquired on a shorter route, and someone told you, take a right turn at Country Junction. Then another chipped in, a bite of tobacco in their lip. As time will dictate, they said, you will reach Christville. And both chimed in unison, never miss the cross, they said, you noted. And so you left, taking that onward stride. You followed the signs in the manner that time dictated. Instinct told you you would arrive by sundown. You anticipated the ember of dusk, the autumn season. It felt as though war would break. That evening, when you arrived from where the breeze came, it was sweltering heat in the manner of a sauna, equatorial, damp to the skin, so much cloth hugged you. At the waist, your navel knotted. The umbilical strand was severed. You had absorbed the essence, and so you dozed. 7 a.m. Waking up to the silence, early morning, in view of the perspiring pain, deflecting light from the darker edges, so it appeared already. The forest was breathing, the window wept in absence. Memory recalled the words that encounter. Was it Berlin, maybe Paris, Europe, where you had never been, but they had taken your spirit in photographs. Imagined your existence in other places, but your soul arrived, an object, buried in a bag, an album, a magazine, a pamphlet which they kept under their bedside cabinets, touching themselves to your animus. On the east ledge, a pot plant set out its arrest, doting at the freedom of the trees, its roots locked in the withered soil, thick mist hanging above its leaves. You were thinking, perhaps, a warp of time had happened. The clock stopped at a critical hour. A generation ceased growing. Daughters and sons remained in their cribs. The spoon took over from the bottom, and in the wake, decades had passed. The parents were dying. I'd like to move on to another poem, which I call The Street of Gentians, Purple Flowers. It says, Lavender Road is not on the map, Violet Jensen. Come here to Ogden's Creek, a river sets two valleys apart. The prairie is on my left, and the meadow, that's one other day. There are purple flowers and tall trees, yellow flowers, even my charred bottom, facing north, my head south, not knowing of east or west. A road runs in two lanes, stand in the middle. The last letter told of my malarial fever. Nile was omitted. I awaited your arrival by sea. I suffered a sting. Anger puked my guts out. Flew my mind over plateaus, longing for home. Our love did not die. It was a frenzy of hallucinations. Today I picked a pill, just in case. I'm told the meadows swam of squirrels, of deer and ticks. I want to save blood for latter times, lest shiver in the breeze of a shameless night in fall, waiting our day on this field. Tonight, my bed's on the wilting leaves. Water slithers past like a serpent. Come watch with me, our flight, the waning crescent of the moon. It glows amongst the stars. In this chill I may fade with the light. Every beat of my heart is the last warmth. Even the road bears no promise that these words will pen someplace. For you, I caught the flatlands. I shall become your ghost. Our dream will fly with the bees. Lavender Road is not in the meadow, Violet Jensen. It is under the nod of the oak trees. It bears no address, unlike your high-rise flat in the city, where you sit by the window, facing the street, bearing all sundry and below, calling attention to the purple of your loins. Lavender Road is the street of gentians.
All right, thank you, Sejake.
Obviously, Sejake did a little bit of introduction for himself, but just to go over that one more time, Sejake is a writer, film practitioner, and photographer from Lesotho. He's now living in Monticello, Illinois. He has lectured for Lynn Wing University in Maseru and the theater program at the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. He has completed an MFA in writing, an SAIC. I hear all the cool people do that. So that sounds really awesome. In 2019, he completed the script editing and translation for a feature film titled This Is Not a Burial, It's a Resurrection, which showed at Cannes. Thank you again, Sejake.
Thank you, Sejake. And I'd like to note we had some sound issues, so we'll be replaying uuskhy and SIFI's video at the end again. Okay. Okay. Just so everyone, because it's too great not to show. And right here, what are we working on, Karen?
Well, we're just messing around for you guys tonight. I'm cutting some smalty, which is Byzantine glass. Actually, we have a lot of it here. In 2012, we got the leftover inventory from the St. Louis Basilica. So this stuff is over 100 years old. It's made in Italy. It's really vibrant and beautiful. I'm kind of working on this little piece right here. And you have to cut the pieces with this special hammer.
Awesome. Right. I think you guys have been marketing wrong. You've been giving them the art. When they have a chance to smash glass with hammers, which could be very therapeutic in our time. And also they have some kits that you could do at home, right?
Yeah, Lucy, who is our administrative director here, she is helping to prepare these kits because we are in new times now. So we're trying to do a lot of off-site and online stuff. So we're preparing these kits for schools and people who want to do very simple projects with everything in them without buying tools and materials.
Fantastic. And Mary will drop those links so you can go and check out and see how to get involved with the Chicago Mosaic School.
Get some kits for yourself, make some art.
And then,
I just want to say we also have live classes.
live classes, masked up, and there is hand sanitizer everywhere and socially distant.
Limited capacity.
Following all of the rules.
Yes.
All the rules. And we are finally up to our final performer for the evening. We're very excited that she's decided to hang out with Exhibit B and the Bums and make her lend her talents to the show. This is Chicago poet Elizabeth Marino. Her work has seen travel. Her poems and essays have appeared in little magazines, litzines, blogs, and print anthologies in India, Gambia, England, Scotland, San Francisco, Austin, Cleveland, and Chicago, including 2 Vagabond collections, Rise and Extreme. Prior releases include 2 chapbooks, Debris and Ceremonies. She was awarded a Ragdale residency, a Hispanic Serving Institution grant, and a CAAP grant. She holds an MA in English from the University of Illinois at the Chicago Writers Program and a BA in English and Humanities from Barrett College, in addition to coursework at the University of Oxford. Mouthful.
I've heard of it. I've
Yes.
heard of Oxford, yeah.
Quite the big deal. We'll be dropping the link to her latest collection, Asylum, published by Vagabond. It's right here. I couldn't put it down when she sent it to me. It's incredible. It's a collection of poetry and prose, very autobiographical, very heartfelt. And this is Elizabeth Marino.
Thank you everyone at the Mosaic Studio, Guild Complex, James, and everyone. Asylum. Another sleepless night, and my remote takes me to Charlie and his blue plastic boat, shared at St. Vincent Orphan Asylum in Chicago. His hair was wondrously full, and he made my belly laugh as we waited and drifted. The dormitory cribs were far different from the blue vinyl mats on the concrete floor of the woman's wing of the shelter. Each places of shelter and transit, an end time at any time. And I see these pictures of the children stacked up like cordwood, relatively safe in their Texas detention camps, compared to the Pakistani children stacked up like cordwood in ox carts after a drone attack. It is difficult to shut off the images on the screen of the mind's eye. The browser sticks and keeps refreshing itself. In the morning, I must go out the door and decide to be alive. The Oak and Maple, for Gamaliel Ramirez and David Hernandez. In this scorched city, the maple and oak tree grew sturdy side by side. Shade and laughter, poetry and Boricane rhythms spread near and far. We basked in their friendship and ourselves grew stronger, deeper, richer. The maple was felled one Chicago winter, and now the oak was bent on the island and broke. We look at wonder at the work left behind. We look and wonder at the work touched by them. We are glad to have passed under their giant shadows. What keeps you whole? Keep your eye on what keeps you whole. Deliberate distractions are everywhere. Fixer Bannon seeded and planted a white supremacist compliant majority fascist revolt within an illegitimate administration. Keep your eye on what keeps you whole. The official public policy narrative changed. The non-outlier majority is glimpsing what was filed away and hidden from wide media radar. Keep your eye on what keeps you whole. Since when is expecting good access to basic food, housing, and clean water extremist? Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, chains rattled yet? Keep your eye on what keeps you whole. This is a time of change and choosing now how and when to let go. You know the essentials which drive your life. You have crafted your voice for years. Keep your eye on what keeps you whole. Forget the hipster MC who asked, does he know you? Are you a somebody? Forget the workers doling out a cot and shower. Speak in monosyllables. Keep your eye on what keeps you whole. Sometimes you have to channel the inner Rosalind Russell. It's the American way. If you don't remember her, ask your mother. Keep your eye on what keeps you whole. And that neighbor whose gentility reminds you of Rose navigating the ice floes of the North Atlantic, but not sharing her door. Graciously hand over your extra bag at the food pantry. Body language. After Buñuel and Dali's and Chen Andalou. In his dreams, she would find safety beside him, would ignore the flash of passing strangers in darkened storefronts. In his dreams, they would go back to her place, turn a single lock, enter the plush darkness of her apartment, and he'd easily draw her to him. Without her turning quickly to light a small lamp, to glance over and through the clear vinyl shower curtain, draw the deadlock, pull the latch, slip close the chain, giving a slight push for good measure. In his dreams on this warm night, they'd wander out into her back porch, her face washed in silver by the full moon. And when he'd stroke her right cheek, she wouldn't flinch. And when he nuzzled the nape of her neck, all that he'd feel would be the soft syllable, oh, without the slight stiffening and soft shit and sigh. In his dreams, he could offer her night's endless possibilities, and she would stroke him till her heart was more than full. Rue du Huchet, March 1976. From my hotel room above the Algerian restaurant, I walked down the narrow steps and out onto the side street. It is more a cleavage in heaped medieval stones than a street lined with green plate glass and pensions. Dawn breaks. From some shadow, an old man is touched by a shaft of daylight and begins to sweep the cobblestones with his bundled twig broom. Across the way, the boulangerie is methodically opening. I could already smell the thick sweetness of crusty bread. Madame is the first shopkeeper to open her door, fling her pail of water onto the stoop, and sweep the remains into the street. I continue down the main street, past the frying Tunisian donuts with mint tea and newly chalked specials written in Vietnamese, French, English, and out onto the bright boulevard. There, that man from the disco last night, brass in pocket, finally makes his way home. A massive St. Michael directs traffic, and those ubiquitous billboards, the great white shark devours the water skier. Jack Nicholson models a straitjacket, wonder makeup for all complexions. Thin young girls hurry past in tight jeans, cowboy boots, and 12 layers of bulky sweaters. The next short pieces are from a sequence called Lyrics for Maria. 3. Things overheard in the neighborhood, an answer poem. Stay away from the Jamaicans. They own property and drive cabs. Okay, man, drop the keys. Why? Just drop the keys, man. I don't know if you said what I think you just said, but if you did, you just wish you never said it. Hey, mammy, amplified by 3 pairs of beloved young boy eyes. Got blunts. 6. Dirty red parka. Tonight, an exuberant man in a dirty red parka sits down next to me in the kitchen. How's the chicken? Great. He said his mother finally got through from Puerto Rico this morning, 7:30 a.m. after 3 weeks. Son, she asked, when are you planning to get married? But mother, I am married to my husband. Son, if you are happy, I am happy. 6. Resilience. Clear a space now, clear a space now, clear a space so you can move. Walk to the middle of the floor. Contract, release, risk off center. Daily, keep finding your center and strengthening that core. Fall down on purpose, monkey face. Take care of the slivers on that old oak floor. Or did they grease our floor? Fall again, fall again, fall again, fall, until the people cannot rise. Song for stars and wild grass. Flowers come to mind for some reason. Our train plunges through the pitch black night. Didn't know I loved the night, pitch black. Sparks fly from the engine. I didn't know I loved sparks. I didn't know I loved so many things, and I had to wait until 60 to find out, sitting by that window in the Prague-Berlin train, watching the world disappear as if on a journey of no return. From Things I Didn't Know I Loved by Nazim Hikmet. 10 fingers over a rough palm. Blue clouds cloaked black night and its wash of fresh stars. Fingers once ever limber hesitated over a piano keyboard. Grasses beneath the Milflora galaxy grow in all their varieties. Yellow mesa flowers with spots of periwinkle and red. A generous, detailed expanse. Ignored. Step away. How many different grasses can you count? I didn't know I loved correspondences. That prairie in Illinois, this grassland in New Mexico. Here, I expect Barbara Stanwyck to mosey on by, but it's only Taylor Swift, regretting her lost virginity, lost to a musician, no less. But this vendor of crystals would do Barbara proud. Her leathery skin and fascination with everybody's story. She'd quarried her own gems and moved them herself, with time to attend an esoteric knowledge seminar. I didn't know I loved collecting stories to bring home. Short, shaggy dog, some almost true. I didn't know I loved lives with difference in silken ties. First, an inaugural gathering with no personal contacts. From my own train, needing a local bus toward the airport shuttle, one driver barked, "Wrong line!" Didn't I see that this was a G and I clearly needed an E route? Actually, no. I just arrived from my ABQ from ORD on a bus-free Sunday, a plaza of total strangers. Would they find me strange? Would poems built on an Acer stand proudly next to ones from a Mitsubishi? Would everyone have cuter leggings at yoga? Would the ghost of Georgia O'Keeffe rise up and demand a favorite image sketched at the Art Institute of Chicago, or be deported back to iron skies over Lake Michigan? A man walked into our L car. A stocky man with a salt and pepper brush cut walked into our L car yesterday from the next car, carrying an anonymous mask and wearing fake sheriff stars. I was reading a new book about Latinas, the media, and citizenship. He entered the space where the doors open and held up a battered tablet after slowly putting on his mask. Great. Socially engaged performance artists are the new mimes. He started circling and taking pictures of the passengers, then sat down directly opposite me. I firmly told him to stop taking my picture without permission. I was a member of SAG-AFTRA and held up my newly paid membership card and added that he did not have my permission to shoot, that I had rights. He started screaming at me. I asked if he had a problem with immigrants. He continued to scream and shouted from behind his mask that I needed to go back to where I came from, that he was a real American. I blandly said that I was born here in Chicago. No, you're not. I refrained from offering him, this loud mime, an American history nugget that folks who looked like me all became American citizens in 1917. He still kept screaming, but by now was also texting furiously. He grunted that I was fairly photogenic, however. The guy sitting next to me had a half smile on his face and continued his Candy Crush game, occasionally looking up at the masked man. As I rode to exit, I calmly called anonymous a privileged, entitled prick. The last piece is from a new anthology, Revolutionary Poets Brigade, Building Socialism. High alert. One or the other of us stumbles, slips into the bathroom. One or the other cat slips into the warm spot and nestles in. We had packed nothing for this trip, but probably will voyage out, return from the other side unchanged. Azure lake and marbled sky split by a rising sun, another day on this side. There is a light within. We see when eyes dim or blaze, lighthouse beacons. This is a time we remember our dreams. We count our dead and cannot gather to mourn. Last night, the weather woman warned to keep your notification devices close. Funnel clouds might touch down not so far away. Thunderstorms boomed, crashed outside our sealed windows. One cat reared up onto my edge of our bed, a flash of light, her corona. Carefully tuck in that blanket of death, covering 220,000 strong in this singular wave of genocide by negligence, commission or omission. Who even knew, besides countless homeless advocates, that poor people doubled and tripled up, and many Latinx people are guessed at by looks as Black or white? Where did all these Latinos come from? Don't bother to ask embarrassing questions. Take away the mental health clinics from people struggling with multi-generational PTSD. Bang, bang, they shot you dead all around. It just didn't ever stop. Struggling to keep ourselves whole without cutting or a whiskey neat. If we could only start up again, this time with a steady income, a steady, clean, safe place to lay our head every night, 2 or 3 people to trust. Push aside this blanket of death, clear a plot, a seed bed to sink into, grow some roots even thrive, and feel the sun lick our newly sprouted green leaves. Let us build a new stage upon this killing floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was wonderful. Right on, Elizabeth Marino. She is a rock star. Yeah, check that link out.
Power to
some of
the
those
people.
books. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much again. Yeah, so that was some stuff. That was some really great art. Thank you again. This is our second show now. I want to thank all the artists for being here one more time. Naomi Washer, uuskhy and SIFI, Sejake Matsela, and of course, Elizabeth Marino that brought up the end there. I wanted to thank the Guild one more time for making this possible. And of course, our host, Jim.
Yes, and we'd like to thank the Chicago Mosaic School.
Yeah, you've seen all their links. Please check them out. They're a great organization. So, yeah, give them some love.
And in, what day was it? December 4th?
3rd.
December 3rd. We'll be doing this again.
We have more people. One of the performers will be our director, Alex Walsh-Shapiro.
Yes,
appearing in front of the camera.
Move from out there. He'll be in front of it.
Amazing.
To show that pretty face and that pretty beard.
Who else do we have?
We also have Robert Oshry. We have Daniel Woody.
Boom.
And Caroline Coolidge McGraw.
Boom. Awesome. So yeah,
and, we'll probably be here.
Yeah, so check out our Facebook. That's the easiest way to get in contact with us as well. So any messages, any suggestions, anybody you'd like us to check out, anyone you want to be involved, please let us know. That is also where we will be posting a recording of this at some point in the next couple of days. So keep an eye out for it there.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you again.
Thank you. And yes, we're going to play, since we know there's some technical problems, we're going to replay the video from uuskhy and SIFI.
In the early 2000s, I made a mixtape for Beatrice called Shadow Play. It wasn't clear at the time how well it would age, but fast forward to nearly 15 years, and Beatrice still plays it in her pickup truck, slowly cruising down wide boulevards with Killer Whale, Husky Mutt, 2 different colored eyes, in the passenger seat. Atmosphere bleeds out the speakers. It's great some people still rock tape decks in their vehicles. White cheddar on rye, grilled, that's what I ate tonight. A life recorded is a life with resonance. A document is meaningful because it is a document. Andre worries about certain rappers. He really listens to their lyrics and thinks about their mental health. So now I'm wondering how Kendrick Lamar is doing. Or moody like that. I saw drag serotonin, as if someone just poured sugar all over my brain and honey into my eyes. Between bands, someone badmouthed the remake of Suspiria. I loved it and highly recommend it. The It's oddly a Jewish story now. If you don't know what I mean, go watch it. But first watch the Italian original from the 1970s. The Saturday following that, I caught the cellist from Eve Blackbird at Constellation and felt a gratitude for the art in Chicago. That totally overwhelmed me. Hello. After Shadow Play, I made Beatrice a mixtape called December's Deep Wish, which she described as an amazing combination of hope and brutality. Sadly, that tape totally died one day in her deck. The thin brown tape spilling from its case, entrails escaping the gut, its contents unplayable and imprinted only on the mind. I told her I could make her another December's Deep Wish because, although I don't remember the specific track list, I recall the spirit of the tape. And it is December now, and the deep wish is always with me. Sandra Harris put out an album in 2017 called Termination Dust. Beautiful minimal industrial with track names like Oblivion Mode and Frontier Death Song. I can't think of anything better to listen to when it is 17 degrees in an overcast Chicago, and I'm either on my way to work or going home. They framed by moody electronic synths and the spongy nature of my imagination. The way passing cars and buildings make a world, a future place. The way I learned to accept what the fuck is just a material thing in front of my face. What a struggle it has been all these years to be in this body and to accept the body. Body not just as my body, but body as car, body as building, body as face, anything tangible. When I see the glass windows of buildings on my way home, I see prophecy, oracle, my own projections playing out an entire narrative onto the scene. To stop the thoughts feels like death, so I bother. The mind police haven't caught me yet. Frontier Death Song is definitely going on to Beatrice's mixtape, Shadow Play 2. The aim is to get it to her by January so she can have 3 solid months of cold concrete and minimal industrial. A long black coat, and silhouetted leaves in her eyes, a sliver of moon and 2 notes repeating. Long black coat and a frozen river. Shadow play. Shadow play. Dark black twig, enveloped by an even blacker water. In the cold, cold night. What is right? Cold, cold night. What is right when led by the night? The shallows of the cracks. Frog and the strange ecology. Your children and mine and the dying world. I'm sorry for the generations to come. I'm sorry for how cliche it is to feel this way. Rise against the tide of the collective and stop the inevitable current from rushing. Who is to say what is the right way to flow? Is that a cop-out? A way to escape the plastic encasing the world? The over-the-top lamination of everything? Frontier Death Song. In winter, the long, endless way of walking when in the Midwest. Of the body on the windshield wipers and the missing mirror. I can only guess how the mirror went missing. The brute strength of raw energy and he tore it clean off, or more likely a sideswipe. I am in Michigan. The government shutdown enters its 4th week. The echo of the nation, echo of the cities, echoes of the town, an ambiance, a stirring, to be brand new, a visitor, I don't belong here in the brewery in Kalamazoo, and Andre sips his brew. We like these things, these beers, and whiskey too. Back on the road, the highway dusted by a fresh coat of snow. I thought about shadow play and couldn't believe the timelessness and mastery of the perfect compilation. The weight of the invisible audience heavy on my shoulder blades. There is a gap, one that everyone agrees on, between last year, which was yesterday, and today. All I can do is surf the electric tides of a million moods and the collective body.